mean, I think you bring up a good point. The Spectrum Authority should not be with those folks. I mean, it's just not their thing. They don't know that thing. So I agree with you there. That's probably priority number one. And then from there you get into the technicals, right? Just the business of what the FCC does. Moose, jump in, man.
So what was the question, Chacha? The first thing that Brendan should do?
What's the priority? What's the first thing? Maybe second thing, most important thing, that type of stuff.
I think the first thing we got to do, guys, enable this concept of if you need a cell site here, build it. Just do it. Nike. Seriously. The environmental BS
so make sure the path is without obstructions.
Not just that, but you have literally small communities and HOAs and all this other nonsense that are prohibiting innovation.
Ajit Pai did a pretty nice job of trying to tackle that issue. I think he hit the tip of the iceberg, but I think there's still more work to do. So that's a good point.
Yeah. But those are the first things, other than obviously, I'm going to say it. Charters for sale.
Oh, mergers and acquisitions.
This is going to be interesting.
No.
Charters for sale.
No.
And the chances of somebody buying them are very high. But I don't think that they're going to want to do a monopoly, because Trump has been on record, multiple interviews post-election, that he doesn't want to, quote, make big companies even bigger. For example,
but he was speaking to the big tech companies.
Yeah, he was talking about TikTok
and
being bought by Facebook. Right? That's literally what he was talking about. But that philosophy also expands to carriers. It's any company. He said that very generally, right? So if you think about it.
But you would be assuming, let's be clear about that. You would be assuming. What you're saying is conjecture. That's not, verbatim quote from him.
It is it's a very, how do I say this? It is presumed the direction based on one big transaction that is going to be happening within the next 90 days, right? TikTok, $40 to $60 billion, maybe even more, right? That's the number that ChatGPT gave me before this podcast, right? Of how valuable it is, just the U.S. operations, right? Comcast buying Charter, that is literally going to become a monopoly. That is the monopoly in cable. Because if you think about it, almost everybody in America has one of those two options. Almost everybody.
It would be the biggest telco in the country.
Right. Exactly.
Well, home broadband and also enterprise.
Would the DOJ let that slide? Would they let it go?
Well, they let T-Mobile Sprint go. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, well, does Xfinity or does Comcast and Charter have their own Marcelo? Like,
who cares? I mean, at the end of the day, the regulators are the ones that are supposed to decide yes or no. And I mean, Trump let it happen once. I mean, who's to say he wouldn't do it again? I mean, I think Moose has a point.
Well, and I get that part of it, but also we got to understand T-Mobile and Sprint were two tiny, crappy wireless companies that came together. Comcast and Charter are the two dominant internet companies in the U.S., so they're already at the top. They don't have any basis to go off of, like, oh, we're tiny, we're the little guy, we're struggling. Without,
they can always say if we're not growing, we can't compete.
Right.
Yeah, well, is that going to work when it has to go through all types of different, bodies, regulation?
All I'm saying is that it worked once with the same administration, the same guy at the helm. So
I get it.
Who knows? I'm not saying I'm in favor of it. I'm just saying that it could happen. I think Moose has a valid.
No, I think he does. I don't think anyone's in favor of it, but I'm just saying Sprint and T-Mobile were different circumstances than Comcast and Charter, which are already in a position of dominance.
That would be a huge footprint because you think about it, like what Moose was saying, they don't really have overlap. They've never competed with each other based on, regional availability. So basically, you end up being in about 90% of the country. Could you, and it would give them a lot of power.
Right. They would be able to dictate the prices of fiber to the cell sites.
And Moose, think about it
Enterprise.
like this. Think about it like this. They could also start buying the smaller regional players and just eliminate them completely. I mean, because you'd be putting together
Right.
the market cap of two enormous companies.
And by the way, I think that there's going to be a significant amount of consolidation in fiber this next year, right? If you think about it, what T-Mobile's doing was the start. In 2024, what T-Mobile was doing was the start. So in 25, I'm anticipating all these like smaller players, to be bought.
I can see that happening. I think that's a foregone conclusion. You got a bunch of little guys that have been building fiber because there was some available funding to do it. Now they're probably like, let's sell. This is getting hard. Selling this is hard.
Right.
Building it was easier.
Sounds very reminiscent of the conversation you and I were having 10 minutes ago, Sneed.
And it's crazy because I've had that conversation with you on a couple of occasions. I've had the conversation with Moose on a couple of occasions. Actually, to Moose's credit, this is a conversation we had in 2023 in the summer.
Yep.
I brought this up back when BEAD was first announced.
Yeah.
The writing was on the wall from the beginning of that program, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, man, this FCC is going to have a lot of issues.
But the FCC,
yeah,
in terms of, these transactions that could ensue, the FCC is not the only, commission that's going to be overseeing any of this. They're involved because it would be airwaves, it would be spectrum, it would be networking, right? It's telco. They regulate that. But there's also the DOJ piece, like Max brought up. They're the ones that actually are kind of they'll be suing, taking this stuff to court, should they feel compelled to. It's going to be about their frame of mind of what they want to allow. And of course, they're going to move off of whose cues. It's going to be off of Trump's cues, his signals. And he's a pretty blunt guy, and he's pretty direct and straightforward. And, so Moose, you say he doesn't want monopolies and shit, but I couldn't tell.
So, like, for example, the JetBlue, Spirit Airlines, right? And Frontier, right? Frontier Airlines. That could definitely be back on the table this year, right? The DOJ denied them, right? To not combine because that's forcing another competitor out of the market. But if Spirit is already in bankruptcy, something's going to happen.
Well, that's where the wheeling and dealing comes into play, right?
Right.
We shall see.